Welcome to the Fortify Your Data podcast. We are rolling. This is Michael Hudak as per usual. I'm here with Jessica Benson, the CEO of Immersive Cure, if I could pronounce it correctly. I want her to be able to introduce it the way she wants to, so I'm going to let you go.
Hey, thanks for having me. So Immersive Cure is a virtual reality therapy company, and we offer experiences for veterans and for older adults living in long-term care, hospice, and hospitals. So what we provide are relaxation experiences in the VR headset, guided meditation, but our big focus is on veterans. And a lot of veterans they're no longer mobile. They can't get to Washington, D.C. to see the monuments. So we partnered with We Honor Veterans, who honors veterans at the end of their life. And so they do a pinning ceremony. And what we're doing is creating a virtual reality tour of Vietnam, the Vietnam Wall, and the Korean War memorials, because those are the people that are entering into the facilities now. So we are now able to join with that pinning ceremony where a veteran pins the veteran, gives him from the branch of the service they served in. They get the pin or a blanket and they read them something that's thanking them for their service. But now we wrap it up and we take them to DC and they get to walk down by the wall or they get to go to the Korean War Memorial. And it's amazing to watch the outcomes because we currently have those experiences in our headset. But now we're going in and we're interviewing veterans and we are really going to polish that Vietnam and Korean experience so that we're telling their story, that we are approaching the wall from their viewpoint instead of ours. So it's pretty exciting to talk to them and hear what they're having to say.
Absolutely. And again, of all my IT buzzwords, VR comes up the least amount these days, which is interesting because I do think more and more of our lives will be impacted by this sort of, virtual reality, not sort of, actual virtual reality. And I was, especially when we started speaking on it, I was very impressed that you have VR concept that's really outside of entertainment, right? This is therapeutic first and foremost. While it might have some entertainment value, I'm very interested in those applications for it because you don't hear about them that often. What kind of brought you into VR? Were you in therapy first? Were you just really interested in the tech and trying to figure out how to use it? I'm just fascinated by it.
So was I when I saw it in 2015 is really when I was introduced to it, when that first consumer easy entry came out. But what happened was my mom had an aneurysm when she was 48 and I was a teenager. I was in college. She lived till she was 74. So over 2 decades, 20 years, I visited her in a nursing home and just, watching her slowly deteriorate and being stuck there and then eventually in a wheelchair and then ending up in hospice. I mean, that was just the process that we went through and that's your life that you've lived. But there's always something you're thinking, why was she stuck around for so long? What was it? And then when I saw VR in 2015, I was like, oh my gosh, now I know what I'm supposed to do with this virtual reality thing. I'm supposed to take it to these people that are stuck in long-term care facilities and just give them a window to get out there and sit on a beach again or walk in the woods or whatever it is. But so that's the kind of the aha moment that I had. So I started researching in 2015 and I'm not kidding you. It was wake up in the morning, start researching, going to bed, you're thinking about it, waking up in the middle of the night. It's like, as soon as you understood what VR was and the power of VR, it was all encompassing because VR can remove 30% of your pain. Then they use 20% less opioids. And these are studies that have been done. They have MRIs showing the pathway of pain and virtual reality travel in the same area, and the brain gravitates to the pleasure versus the pain. So those kind of things kept me going. So then I found a company called Kind VR. They're out of California, and they focus on pediatric kids in hospitals. And they are able to use what they created. It's an underwater game, and you shoot bubbles at these aquatic animals, and then they turn into rainbow colors. It's fun. It's underwater. And I contacted them, and I said, hey, I volunteer at Akron Children's Hospital. Would you be okay if I just brought this in and showed it to them? So they said, sure, why not? we ended up eventually getting 6 headsets there. I started a whole volunteer program for in-house kids, for people in the burn unit that are getting their wound changes, the infusion lab for kids who have to sit there for 3 hours getting transfusions, and then the infusion lab also. So it was great. And I think we did a lot of good with that. And I think that's where I really understood the power of what VR can do. And you're right. It's not a gaming thing. It was relieving pain and anxiety and stress. And so the hospital realized how good it was and decided they would take that over and vet the program and kick the volunteer out, which then gave me the idea to go and keep searching. And that's when Bounce Innovation Hub was starting. And it was in the news constantly. And Bill Myers with New Territory,
Mhm.
there was a article or something about him. So of course I just called him up and said, "Hey, I'm Jessica and I'm so interested in what you're doing. Can we meet?" And he and I ended up becoming co-founders of Immersive Cure. Without him and his knowledge of the industry, right? He started all the AR VR meetups, and he had an AR VR arcade, and he taught me so much about the industry. And it was really exciting to partner with somebody that is a thought leader, and so yeah, so that's where we stand now. I'm just hiring another person who's our CCO, an incredibly creative person who's going to help carry us forward.
So that makes a lot of sense. And I like that kind of, again, I'm in love with the application for it, because a lot of the times when I'm talking to VR people, it's always video games. And sometimes, well, probably most of the times, I think they're typically kind of rudimentary video games that aren't fun. They're just using the feature of VR. My first real foray into realizing VR was a real thing was, I think I was in Vegas at a conference, and they had this VR racing simulator, and I got real life motion sickness and was violently ill for about an hour. And I'm like, this is real, right? And since then I've been on, since then I've been on VR roller coasters, and I found out that I need VR to catch up with my motion sickness. But
Yeah.
I have seen some more calm ones since then, so it's pretty exciting. Where do you think, I guess, so you're treating veterans and older adults that have probably immobilizing sicknesses. Where do you think you're going to go next, or how else do you want to impact your current customer bases? I guess in the next like 3 year. I don't want to pressure you for like a 3-year plan, but like where do you think it's going to go?
Yeah, so we're content creators, so it can go anywhere it wants to. Right now, we're focusing on the veteran pieces, and the veteran community is so underserved. And these Vietnam veterans, when they came home from war, boy, I think we could have done a better job honoring them. So that's really my focus for 2021, is making sure that these men and women feel honored and thanked. So like I said, that's pretty much my focus for this year. But in addition to that, we're doing guided imagery. So we're taking hospice people who may be hanging on for whatever reason. They can't let go. They're just hanging on. And we are now creating a guided imagery for them to be able to, it's kind of ethereal, and being able to say, hey, we've got your people, we've got you, it's a-okay, you're all right, and just continue on your journey. Whatever your journey is, it's okay to let go. And so we're tackling two very, very intense and very emotional experiences. But I think nobody's really doing that because they are, so I think it needs to be done. So those are the places that I am today. I think that as we move forward, what do you get the 80-year-old who has everything? Well, they had a home in Aruba they can't get to anymore. Go film that so that Aunt May can sit down in Aruba again. And so we're going to be able to do custom content creation, and can find a focus on that kind of a thing also. And who knows, as far as COVID goes, we actually added a few customers during COVID because people were locked in, and that social isolation is real, and it's deadly, and it's like smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That's how deadly this is. And so I don't know, like I talk about BC being before COVID and AD after disease. When we get to that AD, a lot of people are going to be used to being isolated and maybe afraid to come out. So maybe that's the place we go next. I don't, I don't know, I kind of let it dictate itself as far as who needs it. But I think that the AR, VR, XR is truly, it's growing. And Forbes magazine, I think, says there's going to be like a $3 trillion business in 2025 in the AR, VR space. So it's growing. And I think that we've hit that part of the curve where now we're starting to get to that chasm that we have to jump. And I think we're all just pushing it over the edge and all being evangelists in our own way. And podcasts help, and all the social media, but people are really, all of us are banding together, I think, and trying to jump that to get it over there. So, and I think it'll happen.
Absolutely. I think it is truly happening now, but to that point, that's why I think it's so important to have these conversations that aren't the video game use case, because again, not that, again, and I think that they're great. I'm not trying to be too down on video games, but that's not where that industry numbers coming from, right? It's those welding simulations. Mm-hmm. It's applications like this. There's even Sea Life, another Bounce Hub startup that was kind of playing with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And augment therapy is tremendous also. And Sarah Hill, who's doing helium, they're using brain waves to help you lower your blood pressure and anxiety. And so there's some tremendous stuff out there. But yes, I think healthcare is the place that is really going to grow. And the AR piece with surgeries and being able to map out a surgery right on top of somebody's arm. Like if you need to do something, that you can map that out right in AR and put it on there. But then the training, you can do 75 heart surgeries before you ever touch a heart.
Absolutely.
In AR and VR. So it is great. And I think that the educational piece is huge. There's just so many places for it to grow. I started a roundtable with a lot of veteran focused companies or organizations, National Hospice, We Honor Veterans, the VA, the Cleveland Clinic. So a bunch of big organizations come together. Started with 9 people that were invited. It morphed into 18 before we even had the first one, because people are interested. They want to be part of that community. And it's interesting to watch who are the early adopters. And I don't know, it's fun to be on that cutting edge and being able to help educate people.
Yeah, and I think that, just from a legacy standpoint, it's weird to look at it this way, but it's very cool to be part of the early applications, because AR and VR 10 years from now is going to make what we're doing like really silly, right? They're like, you're using giant goggles. Why don't you just get contacts? What's your problem, right? It's going to be something like that. And I think the next step, the next huge leap is going to be when we can start adapting other senses than sight, right? When you have like smell-o-vision maybe.
We're doing that. That's
tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's so cool. Company called OVR. It's Olfactory VR. And we're partnering with them. And we are adding scent to our experiences. So when you're walking in the woods, you smell little woods, and then you're down by the river, and now you get a little nano scent of what it smells like to be by a river, or sitting on the beach. You can hear seagulls, and now you smell that salty ocean. And so we are actually getting ready to start a pilot program. I'm not going to say with who, but they're a super big organization, and that focuses on people that are over 50. And we are going to be studying how this virtual reality with the olfactory piece of it, actually, what does it do? Does it increase that release of pain release, less pain medication, which means less money spent? Is it a cost savings? How's it going to affect these people? So many studies have been done without the scent. Now we are putting that scent in there and seeing what the outcome is going to be. And we're going to run a study. It'll probably be a year long. And so, yeah, I'm excited about it.
That's fantastic. I had no idea that was part of it. I would love to wade in Lake Erie, but smell an ocean.
Okay, I love that.
We have the body of water. It just doesn't smell quite right.
That's funny.
But yeah, I think that once you start to envelop a lot of those senses, I think that I think the lines between what's augmented reality and what's virtual reality get a little confusing for some people. But like Tri-C, for example, I kind of mentioned, has that welding program, and welding is very expensive to train people on. But Lincoln, I believe it's Lincoln Electric, I could be wrong, has these giant stations, and you could have a a giant plastic welding unit that feels real, and then you're moved in and you practice welding, and it gives you a little bit of resistance. I think that's I think they called it augmented reality, but it felt very virtual reality-esque to me. But your controller was really just this welding unit.
Mhm.
I really think that once you get better controls, because I think that, again, I was pretty decent at welding in that simulation.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident that I'd screw up my first welding job in real life. But I think that, and this was years ago too, I'm sure it's better now. But I think getting over that control leap is going to be huge. But, for applications that are perhaps less technical training, like, for example, you're not tackling augmented surgeries, which I think would be like, do you want a person trained on AR surgeries to perform a surgery on you? No, you want them to have some hours doing real surgeries first, right?
Correct.
So I think that your application is much more practical short term. And again, I would be, for example, I would be willing to test it out. I would not be willing to test out an augmented surgeon.
Sure. That makes sense. That makes good sense.
Yeah. So for your current business plan, how did you make that jump, and also just some high levels on what your views on funding are, right? I think that's usually the first question a lot of people have when they're making that leap into maybe quitting their day job and going all in on their startup. Do they do more of a bootstrap fundraising thing? Do they go through venture capital? What's your experience with Bounce Hub? Things of that nature. I know I just asked you 50 questions in one, but general thoughts on that bundle of questions.
That's good. So if I go out on a tangent, it'll be, I'm just answering one of your questions.
Absolutely.
That's good.
Set you up for success.
I like it. So I started out at Bounce, and they're supported by Jumpstart. I did the iCore program. I did the Stride program. Then GSV, I don't know if you know them, the Global Silicon. Yeah. They're amazing. Pitched to Tim Draper, who's a billionaire. Didn't get funded. And then did the CTA pitch that was supporting AARP. And that was a great pitch also. So I've really only done 2 pitches. Only one was for money, and that was to Tim Draper. But we bootstrapped it from day one. And, you sell a kit for a 2-year subscription. And my pilot, it's just my MVP that's out there right now. I have 5 customers that paid me for the MVP, which obviously it's a product market fit. It's working. But it needs to be developed out. So I need to develop it out to a cloud-based system, because right now it's closed. It's all housed on the headset. So I can't turn it off. I can't update it unless I have my hands on it. So as far as sales go, I'm happy to sell anybody the product at any time, because it works. It's great. It's a Bluetooth system. It's mobile, and it has the headset, the headphone, and it's controlled by a tablet. So it's perfect for rural areas or places that have weak internet. No, it doesn't rely on the Wi-Fi. So that's really something that sets us apart also. See, this tangent. Now, where am I going? Money. Yes. Anyway, so as far as that goes, we are bootstrapped right now, but I know that to develop out the things that we want to do, this content, our software, and then make it to the scalable place, now is a place that we need money. But I don't know that we are a VC kind of company. We're mission based. We are a social enterprise. So I think that, a Kickstarter campaign or Indiegogo will probably be our first venture in there. But angel investors, definitely open to that. So yeah, it's an interesting field out there. Being kind of new to a startup since 2018, I think that's still kind of new.
Yeah.
You have to feel your way through it, and you have to identify who you are. And I think it's taken us almost the full 2 years to identify who we are, and that we are a social enterprise company that's mission driven, and that we're focusing today on veterans and the underserved and the population of rural area, make sure they get comfort measures like everybody else in a hospice facility or a nursing home, right? So I think we've figured out who we are and what our mission is. So now it's okay to say, okay, now I can go for funding and scale, which I know we will. We just have such great feedback. Um, then that's the next step, is figuring out how to do a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo, or getting in front of the angel investors.
And obviously a lot can change in between now and then, but what do you think that Kickstarter would look like? Would it be, here's our product, you know, we're going to soup it up, and if you back it, you'll get this version of it for this much, and so on and so forth? Or were you thinking about something different?
I don't know enough. You
Okay.
know, if I started talking about it right now, I'd probably hang myself. But I'm hoping that if I could tap into the veteran population and say, look, we want to build this, we want to build it for the veteran community. Can you make a donation? Do you want to be an angel investor? Like, I would certainly, equity based would be fine with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess it's just, and full disclosure, I'm actually asking some of these questions because I'm peripherally involved in like too many startups probably, but also I'm thinking about just completely going all in on one of my ideas. And the biggest thing that I struggle with is that, not, I don't want, I guess I would want to start a company with no lenders, but I like, again, being in like software, sometimes you just need a lot of money up front to finish ironing out the rest of it. Because otherwise it's just this slow trickle of, on the weekends, you spend 5 hours developing it. Over the course of 8 years, maybe it'll be done, but so much can happen in 8 years.
Out of you, right?
Yeah.
Right. So what are you thinking? Do you think you'd do a Kickstarter?
I don't know. I think that I would try to. So yeah. So my position, I guess. So the idea, because again, I think it depends on the idea, right?
Sure.
I would like to give something away for free, right? To kind of build this kind of application out, and you get your test subjects from there. They'll still get value out of it, but it won't be as polished. From there, you have that proof of concept, and I would just sell that. And kind of build it as I go. But it would be a big risk, right? Because in my situation, it'd just be no money coming in for like 24 months maybe, which I might have the bandwidth to sustain. But like if it fails, right, it's an all or nothing deal.
Right.
But again, it's something that I would believe in enough where I think I'd just be able to sell it as it is.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that if you can not involve as few people as possible, you'll be happier. And that's not to say I don't like people. I just think that there's too many variables and too many visions.
Mm-hmm.
And having been involved with Jumpstart to some capacity, and certainly Bounce Hub's accelerator programs, and interacting with so many startups, and I've been constantly interviewing founders and understanding things. I've just heard so many bad funding stories where it's a very intimidating process to me. And so that's a big reason why one of the things, I think if you listen to any startup conversation I've had, I always ask is like, what gave you the courage to jump into that, and what's your strategy been, right? And the interesting thing to me is even the people that went into funding and failed, they still did. It wasn't like, it's not an all or nothing fail. Like they almost always have some sort of weird liquidation of technology that bailed them out, or hey, but I got this connection and now I'm working for this company, or now I work for Jumpstart. So I'm not as afraid of it from that. I'm not afraid of failure, but again, it makes sense to measure kind of those kind of challenges.
Yeah, I agree. And it is scary because, when you get in bed with somebody who's given you that money and now they have a say in your dream, and
Yeah.
and as if they align with that. And I think when I pitched to Tim Draper and the GSV is like, I would like to partner with someone who believes in the vision and believes in the mission. Like all y'all, I don't want you. I just don't want money. I
Yeah.
have to have someone who would be a partner on this journey. And I don't think that'll be hard to find. I'm sure there's lots of veterans out there that have been very successful and would want to, I don't know, donate money. I just think it's a good cause.
Yeah.
I would donate money I have donated money to it. So yeah.
Absolutely. And again, like the thing, so every startup I've invested in thus far in my life, which I'm not this giant investor, but has absolutely burst into flames. So and that's another thing that I keep in my mind. But the reason for that, I think, is I tend to be attracted to ideas that, like, if you had infinite money, I think you'd still be looking to tackle this issue.
Sure.
And I think that if you do something for yourself, it's art. If you do something for somebody else, it's business. And there are so many startups that are out there right now that are like, we do this feature and we're going to grow and then we're going to sell to Google. And that's our entire exit strategy.
So,
And that's fine, but it's not a passion. And so when I'm talking to a lot of startups, and you would not be included in this category because you do have a business plan, but like I've talked to a couple startups and they know who they are, where I'm like, okay, I love this idea, but you have put no thought into how you're actually going to sell it. And that's scary, especially from somebody that might invest in this. But again, those are the projects I like. It's like, hey, I'm going to build this, machine learning project to solve this issue that is relevant to me, right? And that's the thing that I'm just like, that's exactly what I want to support. But the curmudgeon-y businessman in me is like, so what's your profitability? Like, what are you selling? How long is it? Do you just want $1 million in funding to figure it out in 5 years? Because I think that's probably a bad idea.
right. You sound like Bill Nemeth from Jumpstart. He's one of my mentors.
Okay. Yeah.
He just like, and hammers it all right down so that there's no hugging in
Yeah.
startup. There really isn't. You're on the knife's edge every single day and figuring it out every single day, and swiveling, pivoting, whatever you want to call it. But what's interesting on this project is these veterans they were not my forefront, but when my product was out in the nursing homes and hospice facilities, it was the veterans who tried it first, because they are brave people and early adopters and motorcycle riders, and they just give me that technology. I would like to try it. And their outcome is profound. Like, there was a gentleman who I was just doing a demo at a facility, and I said, hey, you have any veterans that want to try this? They said, sure. So we walked down the hall, and before we went into this guy's room, they said, hey, I just want to let you know, he doesn't speak, but he shakes his head yes or no, and that's how he's communicated. And he's been here for 6 months. I'm like, all right, great. We walk in, and his bed is like super, super low to the ground. And so I had to sit on the floor, and I had to hold the headset up for him because we couldn't unfold him to strap it on. And so he was watching a documentary, basically, of going to an honor flight and getting off of the plane and being applauded, and then going to see the memorials. And halfway through, he shook his head. So I took the headset off and I said, oh, sir, I understand you're a veteran. Thank you so much for your service. And what branch of the military did you serve in? And he looked straight at me and he said, Marines. I'm like, Marines, huh? And he looked again, and he's serious, and says, Marines, so strong. And like, the people in the room had to leave. They were crying. They couldn't believe this. And I was just sitting there, I wanted to keep talking to him. And so I started chatting a little bit, but he just faded right back into himself. And they called me a couple weeks later and told me that he had passed away, but he had never spoken again. Like, in the last 6 months of his life. The only thing that opened that crack is the technology and the virtual reality experience to tap into something that was so important to him, that he spoke. And that right there, like, laid that path so solidly for me, that these Marines or veterans, they need to be taken care of and honored and thanked. And yeah, so that veteran piece really has created its own momentum.
Yeah, that's insanely powerful. I mean, really, because I mean, I think that everyone has at least interfaced with somebody or some relative, or they know somebody who has a relative that's just not really with it in the world anymore for one reason or another. And even if there's that, I mean, as you said, kind of that crack, and that to get them back even for a moment, I think that's invaluable. You can't put a price on that, even if it's only for a second.
You really can't. And it was just so powerful. And other veterans, they say they've never been thanked before. And they say that they've never had an opportunity to talk about this. And once they go into VR, it's hard to not talk about your experience, because it's like you're like Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz, and all of a sudden you step out of the house that's been in this tornado and you walk out, and there's the land of Oz, and everything's in Technicolor. It's like that dramatic of opening your eyes in VR is almost like that whole Technicolor thing that happened, and because it's such a new experience. And so you have to talk about it when you get out of it because it's just so dynamic. And these veterans are now talking to their families about experiences that they had that they never talked about. Because typically veterans like to talk to veterans because they understand, they speak the same language, they've walked in the same boots. And yeah, so it's profound to have them being able to talk to their family about some of these experiences.
Yeah, well, and then that's also that word of mouth. I truly think that the path you're on is a path that needs to be traveled more. Um, not just by you, but also competitors. I think the whole industry needs a bunch of people, right? And then you'll be able to all feed off of that energy, and then you'll all find your own niches. And yeah, I mean that's crazy. I wish I in a weird way, I guess I wish that I could see, just see somebody like that instant, like this is different, right? I think, and it's only going to get better, right, with the new features and how that builds, and better cameras and better depth, and once you start, I don't know, I don't know, like once I've seen some early, the 3D models where they take pictures and they crop the trees out, and then those trees are kind of a 3D model, but then you want to touch them and you can't.
Yeah. Yes.
So yeah, I mean, there's so much room for expanse, but all right, as we're getting closer to that 30-minute mark, what can we do to help you? How do we get you what do you need, and how do we get that for you?
That's a tremendous question. Let's see, funding.
Funding.
So I think that is the next step for us. So we want to develop out our APK so that it is a cloud-based model. We want to create more content. We've actually hired a production company, so it's not me going out and doing the videotaping and bringing it in-house and having it stitched together.
You don't get to go to Aruba then?
I'm going to.
Okay.
I will, but Glenn Gray, our CCO, is going to be taking on those creative things. But we did hire a production company that the director was the person who did Saving Private Ryan and Gladiator. And so she worked for DreamWorks, and I mean, this is their passion also. So I think as we move forward, our content is just going to get better and better. So, but again, to be able to do it, we do need funding. And I think that's the place that we are today.
All right.
Evangelize the heck out of VR, and for healthcare, and VR for good, and VR for tapping into memories. And like we work with Alzheimer's patients, we work with kids with autism, calming them down before they go in for a job interview. It can go anywhere to help people.
So okay, so we could definitely say, hey, give these people money, and I think that you deserve that. If somebody has an issue like autism, would you want them to reach out and say, hey, I'd like to see if this would work for me? Is that something that you'd want to do?
Sure. Yeah. So we were going to do something pre-COVID with the Rochester affiliate with autism, and we were going to help and I guess basically do a pilot study to see if it actually worked, to see if these adults who are going in for interviews, their anxiety level is very high. And if we could take them and lower their blood pressure with our guided imagery, which it does work, does lower blood pressure, does that actually help them then go into that job interview? But then I think the spin-off of that is training people, autistic people, for jobs that they're going to be doing, because it's that training part that then makes them feel anyone, not even just autism, but anybody, if you train something in a headset where you can make those mistakes, and then when you're in the real world, you know what to expect, what's coming your way. Now, we're not set up to do that today, but like I said, the next 5 years, we can go anywhere with this.
Yeah, all we need to do is fund you, and then you'll do all the things we want you to do.
This is exactly correct.
That's exactly right. So,
creator for whatever you need.
So with that having been said, send me any links for places you want people to go to check you out, and I will put that with the podcast. So if you're on YouTube, obviously you can just click on the links below. But if you're listening on Spotify, those will also be on there. I think more people listen on Spotify than anywhere else. When you get your Kickstarter, Indiegogo, whatever that funding thing is, let me know, and then I'll push that out to everyone via our newsletter to help direct that way. And then everyone that's listening to this should find a way to be attached to any newsletter you have so that they can just listen to you directly. And that is a gentle suggestion to anyone listening from my end.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to plug before we're done?
Yeah, if there are any veterans out there that would be willing to give me about a half an hour of their time, we're interviewing veterans to make sure that the content we're creating tells your story and that it's not my story. And so we would love to interview you and see what you have to say.
There you go. If you know a veteran or if you are a veteran, get in here. I'll make sure you can email me or you can check the website. I'll make sure I have a blog up with some links too. We'll find ways to get you in contact. Any other way we can help you?
No, you guys are great. I love what you're doing. And just like I said, just keep evangelizing for VR and AR.
Perfect. Will do. Thank you so much for your time. I've been very blessed with like 20 great guests in a row. Haven't had a dud in a while. And if you think you're a dud, you're not, maybe.
Michael, I appreciate it.